Welcome back to Sankofa Studios Artist Talks. We have a really great artist here from Rochester, New York. And what's your name?
My name is Renee Schuls-Jacobson.
And I'm not going to pretend for too long that I don't know who this artist is. She's really incredible. We happened to meet a few years ago in the art store buying art supplies, right? And
Yeah.
I've seen you over the years progressing as an artist. I've gone to your shows. I've seen you at festivals, and I'm really impressed with your work and your story. So, where'd you grow up, Renee?
Well, before I say that, let me just say thank you for having me. We have a little a mutual affection. I love your work as well, and I'm so happy that you're doing this. So,
Oh, thank
I grew up in Syracuse, New York, actually in a little suburb called DeWitt, which is just the first suburb out of the city of Syracuse. And I lived there all the way through high school and even sort of stayed not too far away for college.
you. Okay. So, did you were you or you originally from that area? How would you describe that city, the city that you grew up in? What was that city and that environment
Uh,
growing up?
it's a good question. I actually grew up as a very religious, Orthodox Jewish family.
Okay.
So my experience growing up is that I grew up in a very supportive, but very conservative situation. Everyone around me was very supportive in terms of like everyone knew your business and we all
Mhm.
knew everybody. But it was also, there were a lot of rules and a lot of expectations and there was a lot of conversation about what our roles were expected to be. Like I was supposed to be a wife and a mother, and it was probably my job to replace some of the babies who died in the Holocaust. That is definitely something that was articulated to me very young.
Wow, that's interesting because my next question was going to be what kind of child were you? If you were to describe yourself as a child, were you Renee the rebel or were
You,
you
you
little
know,
Renee?
it's these are such good questions. It's funny, it's like if you asked my mother, she would say I was probably difficult, that I was like willful and um like pushed the boundaries and stuff. But if you ask my father, like he liked those traits in me. My dad was like, she was ambitious and she was like independent and kind of like, and like all that stuff. But I think most people would agree. And I think I've gone a circuitous route, but I was pretty fearless growing up. I mean, I was not afraid. I was not censored. But then I lost myself for a while in there, and now I'm back to that girl again. I'm pretty bold and ambitious, and I'm trying to be courage over comfort is my motto. So
That fearlessness is what a lot of us fathers want in our daughters. We want them to be
ugh.
fearless.
Are there any guys out there who want it in their girlfriends though? You
I hope so.
want it in your daughters, but
Well,
what are you
the fathers want those daughters to be strong enough to protect themselves when we're
doing?
not,
Yeah.
there to be right there with them,
Yeah,
and when they
I have to
engage.
relate to that. My father wanted me to be, I was a gymnast and a dancer, but he taught me to box and to protect myself, and he definitely wanted me to be strong in intellectually and physically. So
So, what were your earliest memories using art to express yourself? I heard you just say you were a dancer. Where
yeah.
were these first artistic experiences, in school, at home, or where did this come from?
So no one really knows this. It's no one's asking me this question, but when I was really young, so I lived in Syracuse, not too far away from Syracuse University, and I don't really know why my parents enrolled me in this, or it was really my father's doing, but
Mhm.
there was an experimental classroom up at the university, and I went to this thing called art. We just called it art school, and it was on weekends. I think it was Saturday morning, and I freaking loved this place. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was a big place with lots of rooms. And my father and I talk about this. Like in my memory, there was like a red room, and there was an orange room, and there was there was a rainbow array of different rooms. And there was one room that was called the Rainbow Room. And my father actually told me there really weren't all those different rooms. They were just always painting these one room.
The same room.
They were just painting it. But it was like magical. I'd walk in and it was like, this week it's the purple room, you know, I have art in the purple room this week. So I did do that. And I do remember painting. I do remember, and we're talking, I was 4 years old. This is before I even started kindergarten.
Mhm.
And I just loved it. I remember playing with clay and making some kind of like really unattractive paperweight, but just like really enjoying manipulating it. And I remember just getting filthy, like having a smock, you know, like one of my dad's old t-shirts, and just like taking the brush and so I always I always really enjoyed playing with art supplies, and it's always magical for me. But it really was not outside of that, it was not reinforced in any real way between then and like what I'm doing now. It was really like part of my curriculum. In, you know, you took the classes you had to take, but nobody ever said, wow, you're a really good artist. Like, I think I was painfully, I was not good at doing what they told me to do. I
Well,
don't.
you got the opportunity to experience the freedom of art, as like you said, taking the brush and just wiping the paint on the smock on yourself and getting it on your hands and all those things right there. And I'm most of the people that I've spoken to about their histories, the ones who've experienced that become artists later. Because
Interesting.
it's like
No one's asked me that, and I have not asked anyone else about their origins. But I truly remember just enjoying it. I've always made like like in high school. I used to get my money to like Grateful Dead shows by selling jewelry, and I've always been crafty. In later years, I would find things at like on the curb. Like, are you one of those people that finds junk on the curb and is like, ooh, ooh, yeah,
absolutely.
you
A lot
bring
of
it
the
home.
wood, a
It's
lot
like,
of the wood carvings that you see that I've done over the years, those are found materials. A lot of them.
yes.
You just
And
mentioned,
that's the stuff I loved. My grandmother was an interior decorator, and we would go shopping, and she stopped for junk on the road, you know, and I'd help her get things into the back of the car. And, you know, she would find good, she'd say things had good bones, and then she would reupholster and stuff. So I grew up with a very creative grandmother, but it was, nobody ever was saying, oh, maybe you'd be an artist. Like, that was not language at all.
now I'm not gonna let you slide by with something you just said. I gotta bring this. We're gonna rewind a little bit. You mentioned Grateful Dead. My next question was gonna be, is gonna be, do you love music, and what artist or music inspires you? Now you said Grateful Dead. Are you a Deadhead or were you a Deadhead once upon a
I
time?
never was. I think I liked the idea of I like the idea that the Grateful Dead broke rules with regard to how long a song could be. You know, like they were not going to be like 3 minutes on the radio. You know, a 2 minute and 22 second song. That definitely appealed to me. I was not really into drug culture, which is interesting knowing what happened to me later. But I was not into that at all. But I definitely liked the idea of like the swooshy skirts and the dance. You know, I was a dancer, so I kind of went into it that way. But I definitely gravitate more toward like Fleetwood Mac. Like, you know, if I could have the best friend of anyone, it would be Stevie Nicks in the 70s. And in the 80s, I always thought I would be like, I still feel like Madonna and I would have been best friends.
Okay. That again, you're making it so easy because your answers are great and you're leading me to the next question so well. Um, I've seen you at festivals. What's the one? And I'm gonna say the name of it. The Purple Painted Lady.
Yeah, Purple Painted
Well, the
Lady.
Purple Painted Lady and other festivals all around the city. Some of them I never heard of, and I'll just show up randomly, and you'll be there. So
Ah,
my question is, what was your first art festival, and what was that experience like? Your very first one.
well, let me tell you two, if it's okay, because the first one wasn't really a festival.
Mhm.
But this will give you a little bit of background. So I didn't really start painting until I had a brain injury, and I know we can talk about that in a minute, but I had a brain injury. And while I was healing, I started painting. And a friend of mine, her name is Jennifer Hess, and she was running a group called Fly Yoga Escapes. And Jennifer invited me to like this yoga retreat where it was small, maybe there were 25 women. And she just said, well, I just thought maybe you could set up a little display and maybe sell some of your stuff. So that was really my first for my foray into like selling my artwork. I only accepted cash at that time. I had no idea what my pricing should be like. But it was such a positive experience, and the women just flocked, and they bought everything. Like I sold everything. There was nothing left. And it was the first time that I kind of thought to myself, huh, maybe I'm going to be able to I might not be able to go back to, I was an English teacher. So I was like, maybe I won't be able to read or write or grade the way that I used to because of this brain injury, but maybe I'm going to be okay if I do this art thing. So that was my very first festival. But as far as like the first one I actually like applied to and got into, was shortly thereafter, because that was in September of 2016. Right after that, somebody told me that there was something called It's a Wonderful Life in the South Wedge, which I don't know if you've ever looked at that little show in the South Wedge, but somebody said it was a good show. It was maybe a year old at that point, and it's all over the city. And they put me in the basement of this church. And I thought, oh, good, it'll be like not very well attended. I'll just be in the basement in a corner. And there were thousands and thousands of people.
Wow.
It was like I was underprepared. I sold out of everything. And
Wow.
that was sort of the wake up for me, where I thought, okay, I could do that. I need to be doing this.
Do you remember your first transaction? How did it feel the first time a piece of art that you created with your hands was exchanged for money? What was that feeling like? What was that moment?
Yeah, so that was before festivals. People were paying me before that, but the first time I did it, I'm such a nerd. I bet you're like this too. I actually have a list, a database of anyone who's ever purchased anything from me, whether it's like a magnet, I have the name of the piece, everything, how much they paid. My first piece of art was sold to someone named Tiffany Yenowin. She was someone I knew from high school, and she bought a 4x4 canvas for $12.
Wow.
And I cried.
Yeah.
I cried. I was so overwhelmed with, like, she was so in love with it, and I was so happy that I could give her something that made her happy. And yeah, I just wept like a baby. What about you? What was the first thing that you sold,
Oh
and what
wow.
was your
To
reaction?
be honest, I don't remember the first sale, but I do remember in the beginning giving away pieces. So I would paint and I didn't know how good it was. I didn't know the value of it. So my friends would say they would not believe me. So I was like, "Did you really do that?" It was a thing like that. And I say, "Yeah." And well, can I get one? Yeah, and I just give it to them. And that evolved into selling small pieces for 50 bucks, you know, 30 bucks. I'm primarily a painter. And it
Yeah,
was acrylic, and then I moved on to oils, and it went from 50 to 100 to 300 to 500 to 1,000. That's
yeah.
it's like, wow, I can't believe this is happening
No,
like this.
I know.
And
And I will tell you, I think I actually at one point accused you. I'm not accused you, but I was like, did you paint that? Because you
I
have
get
so
that all the
many
time.
different styles, and so
Yeah.
do I.
Yeah, as you
But
can see, I do portraits.
I know, and I love that you have all those different styles. And I do remember you painting something and saying, did you paint that?" Not because I don't think you could, but just because you have such a variety of
My
different styles.
mentor said that I was with him this morning actually, and it was about he saw a video of me painting a portrait, and the brushstrokes were so unfamiliar to him. They were uncharacteristic of what he knew me to do. And
Oh,
I think
interesting.
I can do a lot of things artistically, with the exception of I won't say I can't do it. I'm learning. I just bought some today, some watercolors, because I'm pushing myself to learn watercolors.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
a,
Fun.
a good
Fun.
question I have for you is just what is your medium, And can you tell me a little bit about your style and technique? Style,
Yeah,
technique, and
I
process.
would love to. It's funny that you just mentioned watercolors because I'll get to that in a second. But so again, I feel like I probably need to. Well, I'll just hold off on the brain injury thing. But I started painting while I was recovering from a brain injury, and so my medium really were things that people brought me that I could use while I was in bed.
Yeah.
So
No,
I
you can go there.
started.
You can go there now because actually,
Okay.
the next question was going to be, how is art therapeutic for you? How
Okay,
has
yeah. Because it's all connected
it's
for
all
me.
connected? So you can go ahead and
Yeah.
just continue.
So let me just start there, which was that I had been taking an anti-anxiety medication as prescribed at that point, but for 7 years. I was having insomnia, and there were reasons behind that that had to do with trauma and just a really bad marriage situation that I guess I just was not prepared to see. And so it was coming out in these like body symptoms. And anyway, so ended up at a doctor who prescribed, a magical pill for me. And, what it did was it knocked me out for at bedtime. And it really disconnected me over time from my intuition and my creativity and all that kind of stuff. And I took it for 7 years. And it's not a joke when people say like you become a Stepford wife. Like I just lockstep did what my husband expected of me, and not just him, but the culture and his family. And I was like, people always talk about the zombie apocalypse, and I'm like, the zombie apocalypse is real. It's here. There's so many people who are medicated, and they think that the dominant cultural narrative is that these drugs are helpful and they're good for you and everybody's taking a little something. But what I've come to realize over time, especially in coming off of them, is there's just planetary repercussions for not feeling your feelings. And so that's sort of like a quick thing, and we can come back to that. But what I was going to say is that so when I came off of the medication in a supposedly safe it was like a medically supervised wean. At the end of this almost 10-month wean coming off of this drug, I had a huge crash. I had a bunch of seizures, and then I was bedridden for over 30 months. So while I was in bed, I couldn't really do very much. And I didn't really see even people. I really just saw there's a whole story there. But anyway, at one point, somebody brought me some just really junky art supplies, like the kind of supplies that you would get in an elementary school, like it was like Elmer's glue and like construction paper and some like acrylic paint and some of those really junky brushes and papers anyway. And so this person was like, I know that you're really sort of stuck in bed, but like, is there anything that you could do? Could you do crossword puzzles, or could you hook a rug, or could you bake some bread? And I was like, what in the hell are you talking about? I'm stuck in bed. Like I can't get out of this bed. And she's like, well, I brought you these art supplies, so I'm just going to put them here. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, why would I know I've never painted before. But, she walked out, and I was mad, and I started ripping paper up, and then I started gluing the paper down in different ways. And then I started painting over the paper, and I started writing how mad I was and painting over that. And anyway, in the end, it created something that was kind of cool. And I ended up going on Facebook and saying, oh, look what I did today. And I was sort of stunned that somebody said, that's really cool. Can I buy it?
Wow.
And so, yeah, so that was an eye opener. And I didn't, like you said, I didn't sell it to that person. I gave it to that person. I was like, buy it, just tell me your address and I'll send it to you, And I did that for a long time. I just, it all happened very organically, and I just didn't have confidence at the beginning. And so as far as my medium goes, my first medium was truly paper, pens, tiny little tubes of dried acrylic paints that were given to me, magazines. And I guess I'm going to just show you something. This isn't an old one, but it's kind of representative. I'm going to grab this for a second. So this is like a 6x6 canvas. So it's chubby. And so you can kind of see that, like, I don't know if you can see all this, but like
Yeah.
there's, I used some stamps, there was some tissue paper over paper here, there's another stamp, there is this face that's actually on paper, and underneath it all was there was like newspaper, and every single solitary side is kind
Wow.
of finished, and then I usually sign
Before you
it off.
continue, I like to predict something
Yes, sir.
because I've seen you animate. Can you hold that up again? Let's see that again. I've seen you animate some of your characters like that. I'm
Yes.
making a prediction that I'm going to see. I don't know if it's a graphic novel, a motivational graphic novel, animated something, but you've done some things that were animated, almost like advertisements. I'm assuming. Can you say a little
Yeah.
bit about that?
They weren't even meant to be advertisements. They're just another way to express myself. You know, somebody would say, "Oh, have you ever heard of this app?" I think it's called Animate Me. You can do it too.
Hmm.
And I think it's called Animate Me. And
Uh,
I just played around with it and I was like, this is hilarious. You can put your voice, you can alter your voice. So it's like, sounds like you've been inhaling helium. You can make it really bass, but it also makes the mouth and the eyes open and close. And
yeah,
so it's just been fun. And I would love, and I think you're right, Jakub, I would love to do I have a children's book in me that I've already written. I just need to illustrate it. I need to do, I have a lot of projects that I would like to do. I'd like to do a clothing line.
wow.
And I'd love to do, I'm working on a coloring book, don't tell.
Yes. Listen,
And
and also let me think back. Now you're
it,
jogging my memory about your history a little bit. Were you did you sell one of your works to a big chain store?
no, not to a big chain store, but to a very well-known patron. How's
Okay,
that?
no, no,
I
place.
had a
Okay,
very well-known patron who then shared my work with other wealthy
okay.
people. And so that's sort of how it started. But most of my clients are regular people. That just sort of helped with some visibility early on. But yeah, so to go back to your question about Medium, that's how it started. But I have moved, I like to play with everything. Sometimes I integrate beads or wrapping paper. I love multimedia. I love to glue things. It's just like when I said when I was young, I love to like make a little, I don't mind my hands. Some people don't like it when their hands get dirty or
Yeah.
gluey. I have no problem with it. But during COVID-19, I ran out of acrylic paint at one point and canvas. And so that began my foray into watercolors. And so that was like pushing out of my comfort zone too, where I hadn't played with watercolor since I was a child,
Yeah.
but it actually came really naturally to me. And during COVID-19, I did a paint. You'll love this. I did one, at least one, but I did one watercolor every single solitary day, and we're at day 276 right
Oh,
now
yeah.
for shelter, and whatever I call it, shelter from the storm. But I did, until recently I was doing one a day. I did 250 until one a day, one. And I don't know how many I have left, but there was a period
Well,
there where they were just, I'd make it, I'd sell it, I'd make it,
I
I'd
like
sell it.
I like to mention too to people who are listening. I'm going to put a link here where you can visit Renee
Oh,
Jacobson
thank
art.
you.
So you can go to that link. I want you to just browse her gallery and see what's there, because I think that excuse me, sometimes a traumatic experience can be therapeutic for the person that experienced it. But in Renee's case, I think that her artwork is also can also be therapeutic for people who are dealing with things, because it's very inspirational stuff. Uh, you have
Thank you.
the words are inspirational, and the characters they grab you and they stay with you, because I've seen pieces from you that were 3 years ago that I still remember the imagery today. So I
Thank
think that it can serve as a tool for a therapeutic process as well. I think. Uh,
Yeah, thank you. And I'm not an art therapist or anything like that, but definitely my process. I'm going to hold one other thing up for you. Just, I think you can
yeah,
see
let's see
this.
it. Let's see it.
So this is just, I mean, it's hard to see because it's in plastic, but this is this little bird that I
For
did.
children that different is not wrong. I see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did this, I don't even know. I mean, this was before COVID. And I just, I, if something's bothering me, this is literally how I work things out for myself. If something is upsetting me, it's a very strange thing that like my palette is so whimsical and bright, but really like I am dealing with something troubling here, you
Yeah.
know, like this was upsetting. And I have some stuff that I did during Black Lives Matter with like the early stuff with George Floyd. And, you know, people are like, God, it's so pretty. And I was just like, I was weeping while I was painting it, you know, like I'm getting emotional thinking about it, like just tears pouring down my face while I was painting it. And I think that one said, stay calm in the chaos or something like that. And it just,
And you
for
had a
me,
and you had a situation during all of
mhm.
this with your sign in your yard, right? I
Oh
remember.
yeah, that
I remember
sucked.
that.
Neighbors, my
Yeah.
neighbor. Yeah,
So listen, before we're going to move to another question,
sure.
and it's and we're closing in. We're on 35 minutes, so I want to get these questions to you.
You get
Just
it.
a little something to get to know you a little bit better. Tell me what you think when you hear these words, starving artist.
Not necessary.
Okay, elaborate a little bit on that.
I think if you're a starving artist, there's one of maybe two issues. Either you're really not great at at your craft, or you're undervaluing. If people are buying your work and you're starving, then you're undervaluing, devaluing what your work is worth. And that is a hard thing for artists to have to figure, you know. We have to figure that out for ourselves. But starving artists, this is a pretty good time to be an artist. Like you can
Right.
take PayPal, you can interview other people, you can, I mean, you can make content and sell it these days in a way that you couldn't do when you were like Vincent van Gogh, when you were asking for a chicken in exchange for your painting, you know. No wonder the guy, you know, cut off his ear and committed suicide,
Yeah.
you know, like he didn't have an audience and it was, you couldn't sell. But now it's a good time to be an artist. And
Great time.
so I think if you're starving, you're not getting the right, you don't have the right mentorship.
So the next word or words is art gallery. What comes to your mind when you hear art gallery?
So when I first started this, I was kind of like, oh, I want to get into an art gallery, you know,
Yeah.
oh, I want gallery representation. But things have really changed over the last 4 years. And while it's still really nice to have a show, you know, it's really nice to have something look like the way the wall looks like behind you, you know, just have that experience of being surrounded by your work. And I do love that. And I have done them and I love that. The idea of an art gallery, I love the idea of collaborating with different spaces and doing something creative. Look, I'm still that same girl. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do the 2 minute and 22-second song. You know, I don't want to do what everybody else does. So an art gallery, if they can work with me and create something cool, then I'm interested in that. But the traditional model has been almost like a sometimes like a 60-40 split
Yes.
kind of thing. And that goes back to your original thing about a starving artist. There's no reason to give your art away, and that doesn't even make sense, you
Yeah.
know, just
And if you
because
go
something
to
real
Chicago
is,
or New York City or Atlanta or a big city, they want a 50-50 split.
yeah, yeah.
And let
And
me
well,
explain what that means. Let me
I was
explain what
saying
that means to the
60-40.
listeners.
Yeah,
To
no,
the
I was
listeners.
saying, I'm
Explain
sorry, go ahead.
no, explain the 60-40 split. What does that mean to a person who is
Oh
not an
yeah,
artist?
I was saying sometimes it's 60-40 in the favor of the gallery. So if you have a painting that is $100, say, just for ease, the gallery would take $60 and you would make $40 because they have the real estate, you know. But now
Ooh,
with the internet, if you have a website, you have the real estate and you can create your own gallery, your own shop. And that's, you know, you can do it on Etsy, you can do it with there's a lot of different ways. You can do all the ways,
so kids,
Instagram,
so all the kids out there, are you listening to Renee right now? You can do it yourself from home. You can do it from your phone. You can just set up that real estate online and go out there and tackle this on your own.
for sure. And not just, I mean, not just I mean, I'm branching out here. I know this is your art podcast, but really
No,
it's
go
like,
ahead, go ahead.
don't let anyone tell you no. You can do pretty much anything these days by yourself with a website and,
That's right.
even an inexpensive website, or a YouTube page. So just do it.
That's right.
Just
Just
do
do
it.
it. So I got some rapid fire questions before we close, lead into our last question.
Ready.
All right, here we go. And as an artist, this can be interesting. Just the first thing that comes to mind. What's your favorite color?
Oh, it's so easy. And I've told you this, phthalo blue. I
Phthalo.
had somebody tell me that if you put phthalo blue into a painting, it will sell. I always put phthalo blue in my painting.
I'm working with a painting with that color. I'll show it to you when we're done.
It's
Next
gonna
one.
sell.
Next one is what is your favorite word?
Um, um, Ocean.
Ocean. You know what I thought you were gonna say?
What?
Sold.
Gold?
Sold. like
Gold.
like a
You know
sale.
what? Let me say something about that because it maybe I my paintings are all my babies. And
Understood.
I am not so quick to sell my work.
Right.
I know that I can always replace anything that I mean, it's like I'm prolific. I make a lot of stuff, but I like to stay with them for a while. I have a little nail on the wall in
Mhm.
front of my bed. So the latest piece of artwork that I do is always when I wake up, it's right there. And sometimes I have to make little changes, but I have to live with my people for a little while before I can let them go. So I hope people don't have the impression that I'm always like, bam, sold. Like
No,
I'm not all about, it's not the money. It's like I love these characters and sometimes it's really hard to let them go. And if I can't, then I don't. And you can't see, but my house is filled with my artwork and I have a lot of stuff that I will not sell because I love them.
that's interesting. One of my mentors gave me this advice a few years back. He said, if you have a piece like this piece that's behind me, which I don't want to part with, the lower mask, he said, if you have a piece that you really don't want to part with, but you want to put it out there to test the market, he said, put the price way up where you think nobody won't, reach for it. And you'll feel satisfied with the amount if somebody does take it
That's right.
from you. Because
That's
I've
right.
got paintings salute I've lost, and I say lost them when someone
Yes.
actually bought.
Yes.
I
Yes.
lost that painting, and as soon as I did it, I regretted it because the money is only going to do what? You may pay bills with it. You might
Get more paint,
the
right?
money get more paint. The money is gone as soon as you get it, but you don't have your painting anymore.
Yeah,
So
I
I
mean, it
definitely
is an
understand.
act of creation. It's birth. It's your creativity. And so I'll tell you, one of my mentors told me something similar to what you said.
Mhm.
But you got to really price it so that you can really let it go.
That's right.
Because for me, some of these, there's no price. That some of them are magic. It's like, oh, I was in a zone when that thing happened, and so that's when my person said, you some artists don't ever sell their originals and they only sell reproductions,
That's
and that's
right.
okay too. So there's a million different models out there. I am very satisfied for some of my artwork to just I get the originals and
Everybody
other
else
people
gets the
can have
print.
prints.
So what was you said so your favorite word was what again?
I think it's like ocean, like
Ocean.
I'm a mermaid, so like the sea, ocean,
That's the
water.
that's the piece that I remember. The mermaid. That's the
Oh
piece
yeah.
I remember. Uh,
Yeah.
and yeah, maybe I can show you a picture of that mermaid here.
Yeah.
YouTube. So, what is your least favorite word?
No.
No, no is one of, and I learned this from a community organizer, organize a leader in the organizing world, who was a student of Saul Alinsky in the International Areas Foundation. His name was Big Ed Chambers. He's since passed away, but he told me, and I remember, never forgot this. He said the most powerful word in the world is no, and he would say you're going out to do an event, and they want you to speak and tell your story, and they say we'll give you $20 to speak to this group of students, say for an hour. He said you do it 5 times and they're killing you. They're getting you for cheap. He said on the fifth time, say no. The sixth time, say no. The seventh time, they're going to offer you $40. He says, so say no sometimes, because if you say yes, you're selling yourself too cheap.
Yeah,
Not for your time.
I
For your
don't have
time.
trouble saying no. I don't like when people say no to me, but that's why it's my least
It's
favorite word. But
powerful. It's a powerful word.
it's a powerful word, but I have learned, I've had such a hard life. I have learned that when people say no, that to me, that just means I go home and go, how can I still do this? Who else do I need to? I guess I don't take no anymore. I hate no, but I, if
The,
it's,
the best thing to me in the world is to say, to have the courage and the ability to say no without explanation. And the best relationships are with people that can accept your no without
yes,
explanation.
yes, yes.
I just can't.
Oh, I'm telling you, I have a really hard time accepting no.
Yeah,
I can say no all day long.
that's
No,
right.
no, no. But accepting no is really, I'm I'm pushy.
You admitted that. You admitted that in front of everybody. Okay. So the last question that I have for you is,
Yeah.
it's a fun question, and we're gonna close the last impression. You, Renee, are trapped on a desert island, just an island. You got all the food you can have. I mean, all the things you need, shelter and things like that. But you
Okay.
can only have three foods. You're gonna be there for a whole year. What would those three items be?
It's pretty easy. I know the first one very easily. Absolutely watermelon. I feel like I could live on watermelon for like a pretty long time. Um, like I can eat an entire big one in a day, like have been known to. So watermelon is one. Gazpacho is probably a second one. I'm allowed to have all the things in it, right? Like it can have
Yeah,
exactly what.
you got
Okay,
what
so
you think.
watermelon, gazpacho, and I gotta tell you, I think it would be a toss up between like, you can't eat steak every day, like that's just gross, but I could eat chocolate. So watermelon, gazpacho, and like a little sweet thing. I
Yeah.
don't want to deprive myself for a year with no like chocolatey things. So it would be watermelon, gazpacho, and chocolate. But if not chocolate, I would take this. No, that's it. That's it.
Okay.
Watermelon, chocolate, and
Well,
gazpacho.
Renee, I have to say thank you so much for having this conversation with me today. And for everybody that's listening, I'm gonna put some links in my bio, not my bio, but some links below where you can reach Renee Schultz Jacobson, Schultz Jacobson.
Can I sing you my outro before, just to put it out? Ready?
Go ahead, sing your
This
outro.
is my outro. She's always doing something. She's an artist to the core. Raz Jacobson dot store.
Okay, there we go.
I won't
Listen,
get a day
you
job.
heard it. You heard it right here first.
You have that little earworm now.
I know. Listen, Rise Jacobson dot store. I'm not gonna forget that now. That's pretty cool. But
Thank you so much, Jakub. This was a pleasure.
you're very welcome. Thank you. Below you'll find some links where you can reach her. Follow her on all the social media. She's everywhere. She's on Instagram. She's on Facebook. She's on. Are you on Pinterest?
Probably. I
Probably
do
on
have.
Pinterest.
I'm not actively.
Active. So I'll put some links here. You can find her. Go shop with her. Go explore her channel. Look at her work. She puts up some really good videos of herself, doing what she does. She even does some stuff with her parents. It's pretty cool online. So that's always fun to watch. And you can follow me, of course, at Sankofa_studios everywhere: Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Reddit,
Are you
Medium.
on? You're on Pinterest,
I'm
really?
on Pinterest. I'm on Medium. Everywhere you can find me. Follow my blog, sankofastudios.com. And follow this podcast. You can find it everywhere podcasts are found. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it, across the board. And SoundCloud, everywhere. Sankofa Studios. And man, Renee, I really appreciate it. And I thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
All right, bye.